Hey, there's some interesting stuff going on in Pawtucket, economic development, even if it's not the Paw Sox. Welcome into My State of Mind. I am Dan York. Thank you very much for tuning in on MyRI TV, weeknights 7:30 and 11:30. Now, of course, on Fox Providence at midnight. Don Grebien is my guest. He returns to talk about some good things going on in the city of Pawtucket. And let's get into the nitty-gritties of this Paw Sox relationship, because you know what? I can't say the thing is dead yet. I mean, he told me it was a real small chance to save them last time he was here. Maybe he's got some insight. I don't know. This listening tour that they're doing, not very impressive. How's everybody? Good? All right. On this, don't complain about the heat. 2 days in a row. This is what we were gasping for this past winter. Let's go to the rundown and talk about some things. Speaking of gasping for, they were gasping for help sort of at the Salty Brine Beach a couple of Saturdays ago, but it's nice to see that people remain calm when they dial 911. Eyewitness News got an exclusive scoop when they picked up the 911 call from that day 2 Saturdays ago. Headline: section of Salty Brine Beach reopens, blast 911 calls released. Yeah, this is interesting. Here's what one of the eyewitnesses did when she dialed 911 to say some lady just got blown up.
They're against an emergency.
Hi, I'm at Salty Brine Beach.
The 911 call starts off with a beachgoer calmly explaining the aftermath of a terrifying explosion that left a Connecticut woman with serious injuries.
Somebody, did she fall or did the rock fall on her? The rock, fell on her.
The rock fell on her?
Yeah.
Do you know if they're pinned under the rock?
I heard a bang. People are saying that the rock's exploded.
The dispatcher tells the caller help is on the way. The victim was taken to the hospital with a concussion and broken bones after a mysterious blast witnesses say appeared to come from under the sand.
And of course, there's still no answer to that mystery. And I hope that there eventually will be one, because Rhode Island tourism industry will suffer over the long run if it's not resolved. It's not a devastating blow, but if that woman in Connecticut who got blown up, she lives in Connecticut, keeps talking to networks, it's going to be an Achilles heel for us. The interesting thing about this is that there was a camera, and there is a camera down there in Galilee, but it wasn't working. Here's the headline on that one. Yeah, it was never replaced. Looks like we have 27% of the security cameras that are placed in strategic spots here in Rhode Island. They're not working. This one's due to a contract and a maintenance dispute. This kind of performance in Rhode Island is unacceptable. I don't know if that camera would have picked up what happened at the jetty. It may not have, but not to have it operating, just another one of those things that makes you roll your eyes, right? Moving to Tiverton, there's a big conversation going on about development there. The headline: look at the people who are showing up for a public meeting, and there's opposition, according to Eyewitness News.
This is Tiverton. It's not Warwick, and it's not Cranston. This is a Warwick and Cranston-sized development. It may be appropriate there, but I think it's totally inappropriate in Tiverton.
One needs only to look around to see the vast amount of unleased retail space within the state and surrounding towns to know that brick and mortar retail is on the decline.
Look, there are arguments on both sides of this issue, and that's a good thing. Towns ought to be discussing what their future looks like, and I applaud them for it. Let me put out another APB. Contact us on Your State of Mind, and you know that a half a dozen of the so-called leaders of this no on the development group have been contacted by our program here. We'd like to have you here on set to describe what it is that is problematic for you, and if you happen to support this idea, let us know as well at the number that we'll show you coming up, 228-1886. We'll show it to you in a minute so you can write it down. We'd like to hear from you and talk to Jess, and let's get you in here, because these are interesting conversations and not everybody gets to attend the public meeting. The opening is delayed. I don't know. It was kind of confusing. Headlines were, I guess, misleading. The story that came from that particular headline talked about this being a 28-day-old project, but the DOT said, this is the Park Avenue Bridge that was closed amidst the controversy when the Speaker of the House, whose working office is his professional working office, is a couple hundred yards down from this spot. He thought maybe there was some shenanigans. He never said it, but he certainly inferred there could be some shenanigans going on with the closure of the Park Avenue Bridge amidst all the truck toll controversy. Well, the Rhode Island DOT certainly wanted to clarify things today. They put out a press release that said, we're ahead of schedule, 6 days ahead of schedule. Now, it's still a distressed bridge. but there's a weight limit on it, and it is now open for traffic. So, you know, the saga of trucks and tolls and bridges and the condition and Cranston and all that continues, but at least there's free passage, and the businesses on Park Avenue can breathe a sigh of relief there. The Rhode Island State Republican Party is an organization that I, in many ways, feel sorry for because they've been just so anemic over the course of the last handful of years. Frankly, I think it ought to shut down, regroup, and come back in a year later with brand new players, with a brand new charter, and a brand new strategy. I can go into those details, but I won't right now. But when I looked at this headline today and I read the story, I thought, come on, really? Now, you know, you never know what gets caught in the journalistic flywheel. Meaning the Republican Party chairman, Brandon Bell, says to me that he has put a lot of press releases out on a whole bunch of issues. You know, I've been chastising the Republican Party for not being there on things like demanding subpoena hearings for 38 studios, for not sticking to their pay-as-you-go plan for truck tolls, for not being there when it counts. Now, the low-hanging fruit, the easy stuff, the pedestrian complaint is about salaries for cabinet members. Gina Raimondo is trying to get her salaried cabinet players, 6 of them, up to $135,000 a year, which will still, based on their respective positions, put them below, significantly below Massachusetts and Connecticut. But it does raise the bar a little bit. I think that's fine. The GOP chairman told me on the radio today he doesn't.
I can tell you that I've heard from a lot of people, and this is it's very concerning. And you may not think it's a big deal. I'm assuming that's the position you're taking, that it's a big deal that these cabinet members got what you probably consider modest raises. But it is a big deal. They just started several months ago. They knew what the salaries were when they began. I mean, why is it that we're giving them 33% raises?
Yeah, by the way, I am sure, quite certain, that Governor Raimondo, when putting her cabinet team together, recognized the low salaries. I'm sure the people taking the jobs recognized the low salaries, and they're low $100,000 plus jobs. I mean, for instance, the DOT director is only going to get a $5,000 raise. He makes $130. A couple of the others make like $108, and we'll get, you know, raises to $135. But I'm sure that they took those jobs based on the confidence that the governor had that after 8 years, I believe, she would try to restructure those salaries. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not the big picture financial problem. Now, those directors better do their diligence and better be efficient and save us some taxpayer money with the services that they are providing. But, you know, we've got this salary envy thing here in Rhode Island and this kind of junior varsity disposition, and both have to end. We can be big time here. We can be. A lot of it has to do with an attitude change. Now, look, we've been beaten up by leadership that's disappointed us time and again. But, you know, perspective is important. And the GOP better get its act together. Get a bigger issue. There's plenty of them. All right, a little follow-up. So Eddie Kirby was here on Thursday, and Brad Faxon was here on Friday on Dan York's State of Mind. I just thought I would follow what was said on the Thursday program. Eddie, the very popular Rhode Island golf professional who now is at Point Judith after a long stint at Alpine, went across the pond this week. He told us about it Thursday. He was telling us that he was trying to qualify for the Senior British Open. Here's what he said.
I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to the challenge, and who knows? This story's not done yet.
What do you got to shoot in the qualifier? How many spots?
Everyone's told me there's 111 for 8, and it's about even par or better. And it's a risk. There's no question. It's taking a couple dice and chucking them. But you know, I feel like at this point in my life, it's time to do it.
Eddie made a double bogey on 17, and parred 18 to shoot 1 over par. The cut was -2. He was right there, knocking on the door. Good effort, and I hope he feels like it was a trip worth it over to England. In the meantime, speaking of England, British Open, all that kind of stuff, Brad Faxon, who needs no introduction, made a projection as to who would win the Open on Friday night.
Louis Oosthuizen's a South African that finished 1 shot out of that playoff, or with Dustin Johnson out of the playoff. He's my pick just because he's won the British Open. He's played well at St. Andrews.
Pretty close, pretty close. Oosthuizen was tied for the lead at the end, went to overtime and lost to Zach Johnson. Pretty smart. There he is, Louis, doing his thing. But it was Zach Johnson who won a very emotional British Open. Alrighty, contact us. 228-1886 is the telephone number. Email us, stateofmind@myiTV.com, Facebook post, and tweet, excuse me, at Dan York Show. And again, you folks in Tiverton, let us know when you want to come in, and anybody who's got an idea about being on this program for a good reason with a local conversation that everyone wants to hear, let us know. All right, when we come back, Don Grebien, the mayor of Pawtucket, lots going on. I actually breathed a nice sigh of relief when I saw this headline the other day about Pawtucket. Some serious development is coming on here. The mayor announces a plan to develop the riverfront. People love water, people love development on water, and Eyewitness News put together a little piece on this.
With the newly renovated festival pier as the backdrop, Pawtucket Mayor Don Grebien announced the next steps to transform vacant land near the intersection of Water Street and Division Street. The project would include a mixed market rate of residential apartments, commercial and retail space. City officials say it's not clear if taxpayers would foot the bill. The mayor says this plan could attract potential employers and residents to the area. Developer Colin Kane agrees.
We want to create an activated campus that's not only a great place to live, work, and play, but also a place that enlivens those houses and those businesses 3 blocks away.
That sounds like a bunch of good news.
Yep, it's great news, Dan. So we have this great opportunity. We've all talked about it for many years. You know, some of my predecessors have tried to do different developments on there, and you know, because of the market, things have fallen through, and everybody seemed to lean towards a hotel. This is the first time that we have this great partner in Peregrine who took a look at this site. It's about just under 11. It's 10 plus acres, and really took into account. You know, we went through this process with some private investors and private mindsets out there, and some developers, and we talked about what's the highest and best use. And you know, they can come in and they could put a slab on there, put a box store up there, but we really talked about what is in the best interest long term for the city. And so there's great opportunity out there, and now, you know, together with the council, we're going to be working through the financial piece of it, and hopefully over the next 2 to 3 years that we'll see the development happening.
By the way, welcome. Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah, I got right into business. Good to see you.
So who asked who to the dance in this situation?
Long story. You can cut me off because I can talk all day about it. Went out for an RFP. RFQ first, rather. RFP, we had 3 developers come back.
An RFQ is a request for?
Qualifications on that site. So we put it out there, and we had 3 developers come in, and we took a look at their financial support that they could have there. Not necessarily their idea, but do they have the means to develop this? Because that's one of the areas that the city was cut short on. We went with some developers who might not have had the capacity to do what we wanted or what they wanted. And so then we went to the next stage of an RFP, which is a request for proposals. And we really didn't say what we wanted. We implied it, but we said, you go out and you tell us from a marketing standpoint what's the best and highest use. And at that point, 2 of the 3 had petered off, and Peregrine stuck in at the very, you know, to the end. And they put together this great proposal. You know, it's about a $40 to $50 million project on the waterfront. There's going to be some subsidies that have to go with it to make sure that we maintain the public access to it, the waterfront, the parking amenities, and those types of things, and that's what we're going to be flushing out.
Colin Kane, who's in there, who heads up this project, former volunteer head of the 195 Redevelopment Committee.
Yep.
I've had him here, I've had him on the radio. He expressed a lot of frustration with politics and progress there, and everyone's got a different perspective as to whether he was the right leader. Not a lot's gotten done down there, but I'm not going to cast judgment, but it is provocative that he even made some commentary, and we got to get him in here as well. It dawns on me that we should, about the difference in the culture and nature between Providence and Pawtucket.
Yep.
That Pawtucket, that he felt like bang, 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 things can get done quicker and more efficiently. That had to make you feel good.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we pride ourselves on, and we say this in Pawtucket, is that we're big enough to be called a city. We're the 4th largest city, but we're small enough to get things done. We're able to reach out to, you know, we've always had a great relationship with the former governor, the current governor. We're out there because it's in their best interest, it is the cities. We flush out a lot of the issues. It's not perfect, let me tell you. There are, you know, we're at the state today with the e-permitting, and we're talking about doing the statewide permitting. I serve on that municipal advisory council, and we're finally got a vendor in, and we're going to see those types of things. So what I've learned about Colin, and this is probably why Colin and I have hit it off very well, is I come from the private business, you know, aspect of it. It's okay, you need to do certain things to get done. Let's not get tied up into, you know, the governmental red tape. And he really appreciated that. Listen, it's not perfect, and I'm sure we're going to hit some bumps, but you know, we're proud of the accomplishments we have.
So at the end of the day, what's the funding quotient here? Taxpayer versus private development?
It depends. So right now, the way it looks is, in order to make this a sustainable project, it's anywhere between $6 and $10 million that would have to come from public subsidies. So depending, the governor and her new budget just put all these new incentives out. So we were up talking with Secretary of Commerce, Stefan Pryor, on Friday. We're setting up a meeting with Colin because we had already started this process, you know, prior to the incentives being this. We want to get an idea of what we can apply for from the state to reduce that. City side, there was talk about, we brought in professionals to take a look at what a TIF, which is tax incremental finance. You borrow against the long-term, you know, the potential revenue that's going to come into that. That's one way. The company actually came in and said that a better way might be to take the tax treaty or tax stabilization programs that we have and stretch it out over a longer course so the city doesn't have to borrow and put the money up front, that you take the longer term. Right now, I think it's important for everybody to realize we're not getting any tax revenue on there. The city owns it, so that might be a better way to stretch it. So we're going to figure out all those pieces over the next 6 months. The council has clear control of property.
Projected jobs? And
projected jobs, I mean, you're talking about the construction jobs up front that we really haven't talked about numbers, but you're talking long term. There'd be maintenance, depending on how many commercial developments that they put in there. They're talking about potentially an office complex. So I think at the end of the day, the numbers will be out there, but you could have anywhere, you know, between 40 and 100. I don't want to overstate it because it all depends on what the mix is.
But it's action.
Absolutely.
And it's aesthetics. Right. And it's exciting. And it's development. And it feels like you're moving forward.
And we're good about that. We're really excited about that. It's progress. You know, it takes some time. As you know, you've been in the state a long time, and sometimes it takes too long.
Well, you know, contrasting that with your struggle with the Paw Sox, it was a breath of fresh air for you and news. Good news. When we come back, what's going on with that? You know, is there a chance that this thing could, I don't know, stay with us.
Baseball triggers a lot of emotions in people, and we understand that, respect that, and appreciate that. And allow that to foster conversation, allow that to trigger ideas, allow that to spawn some imaginings of what a new ballpark environment might feel like when it's connected to a downtown of the state's largest city.
The new spokes guy carrying the ball in this effort to move from McCoy to down City Providence, Dr. Steinberg, who seems like a generally smart guy, but I got to tell you, Mayor of Pawtucket, this has got to be one of the dumbest employees I've ever seen. You must be sitting here watching this, saying, maybe it'll turn in our favor eventually anyway. I don't know, but what's are you doing? What are they doing with this listening tour? Right here, can I just show the headline and then I'll ask the campaign for new Paw Sox Stadium rolls on. They're rolling around promising to go to 39 cities and towns. The same people that are aggravated with them are trailing them all over Rhode Island, and the people that are showing up are the people that are upset. Why don't they just put the number out? What's the new number? That's not your thing. Yeah, no. You're just watching it, right?
I mean, you know,
the jilted one sitting there watching. Maybe you're going to get asked out again.
You know,
I don't know.
And we've been trying. You know, what I mean, to talk frankly, we've reached out. You know, we keep getting told. You know, we got our last letter from Larry Lucchino, maybe about 3.5 weeks ago, in response to ours, saying, listen, let's sit and talk. You know, we're going to be partners in this. They have a lease till 2021. We have a lease with the state, so there's going to be some having to do some business relationships and working out. So
meaning buyouts.
Yeah. So we don't want to cut the total tie. We want trying to work as respectful as we can with them. However, there's not the reciprocation of the respect. They tell us that they're going to meet, and, you know, and they'll be hearing back from us. We reach out and we tell them we'll clear up, you know, our schedule, so on and so forth.
Sure.
So we go through that. So we've been really trying to meet with them. But on this listening tour, I mean, the feedback that I'm getting. First of all, everybody knows that the state, you know, I think that most people in the state, and I think the governor herself had released a poll out of 498 of them were opposed to it. I think they're still seeing that. That's why.
Yeah, those polls, nobody calls, it wasn't a poll, it was calls into the office.
Sorry, yes.
Nobody calls you. You know this as the mayor.
Right.
There's not a lot of people calling you to say, hey, Don, nice job.
Right.
Thankless job sometimes. But,
absolutely.
So,
no, you're right.
So
no,
I don't,
fair.
that number or whatever. But look, listen, they've soured, you know, God rest his soul, Jim Skeffington, you know, tried to run a hard fastball underneath the chin of the taxpayers. It didn't work. And now they're trying to sell us on this idea that they still need to be there, but they haven't thrown out the New Deal. How back blankward is this whole thing? So as you sit there as the mayor of Pawtucket, by the way, they said 2 years in McCoy, it's going to have to be 3 by now. I mean, they can't get out of there unless they're going to pack up, you know, Mr. Irsay-wise with the Colts and head out of town. Unless they pack up and leave, they're going to be around for a while.
One of the strengths that we have is in you know, this part of Rhode Island, you know, when you take in the Connecticut and Massachusetts, is the fan base, the northeastern region. There's a big fan base, so that's their business model. They need to stay here. So I think that's our leverage as residents, as taxpayers. But the way they're handling this whole thing is, you know, to talk about they're doing this listening tour, and I'm getting feedback. I get calls from people from Cranston that were very discouraged, you know, because they weren't allowed to speak last night. So it's not a listening tour. They're not asking for feedback, and when people give feedback, they're asking them to leave. It's just the whole thing is bizarre, you know, so they've got their mind set up. They don't want to be here. The question is, do they not want to be here in Pawtucket, or do they not want to be here in Rhode Island as well?
Well, I think you've been incredibly diplomatic. There's a lot of things that you could do, stunts you could pull from a political perspective to create some noise. There have been some protests, you know, fledgling protest groups. Are you doing anything in this weird meantime to say, hey, here's another suggestion, here's another development idea from Pawtucket, here's, or are you just waiting to see if the whole thing falls down on them?
So 2 things. One, that was what we wanted to have the dialogue with them, to have honest discussions, to see what their true needs are. There are sites in Pawtucket, you know, if they felt that they couldn't renovate, I think that it has a lot of value to put the money into it. They won't be able to capitalize on their revenue like they would in a metro center, but I think there's a lot of value in Pawtucket and staying there for those reasons. What we are doing is we asked for the feasibility study. That now in Lucchino's letter, he said that there is a draft feasibility study. So we might have that when we meet, is what was led down there. But we did sit last week with the Secretary of Commerce, sent him a copy of the lease agreement, because in the lease agreement for the extension, which I alluded to all these times, is the state and the Port Sox owner are obligated to do a feasibility study. They were obligated to do this back in 2014.
Feasibility for what?
For everything, from the use, for the long-term maintenance of that building. That was
meaning McCoy.
McCoy.
Right.
So the previous owners, but it carries through this lease, and the state have the obligation to do the feasibility study.
Show us the numbers and the potential in
Right.
McCoy before you start thinking that you're going to sell this whole thing over here.
Dan, there's that, and then if you're going to go, they have the responsibility to what they're going to do in Pawtucket. But let's talk the honest numbers, have the honest discussion, but for whatever reason.
So your gut tells you, I mean, last time I asked you 1 out of 10, you said 1 or 2 out of 10 chance. What's your gut tell you now out of 10?
You know, I try to, from the business owner's perspective, I still think that it's the same number. But then the perception and the political, I don't even start political, the people out there that want to be heard are frustrated. They want it to stay here. So I think the leverage from, you know, the fan base and those are really in the state legislature. I don't know that the support is there to move it. I don't think there's a support for any type of money. So I think that's the leverage. You know, so if it's the state, no money, that's their business deal. The state and money, I think it's a major issue.
You didn't give me a number.
I know, I don't know what it is.
Is it back up to 3 or 4? Are you feeling, give me 10 seconds.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you feeling more confident, yes or no, that they might have to stay?
I think that I'm feeling more confident that the state is going to have to not put any numbers up and keep them here. I don't know that that's what they want.
Come back soon. Good
Thanks.
to see you.
Thank you.
One more thing. Couple of program notes. Stephen Alexander and his transgendered story in a repeat performance Wednesday. Michelle Gay, Sandy Hook Mom on Thursday, and The Woman Sailing Around the World on Friday. We'll see you then. Good night.